Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 281. Now, if I could do a kind of like punching sound, I would do it, but I can't. So that's the best that we're going to get. The reason why I do that is because we've got a bit of there's going to be a bit of testosterone in this show because the guy on the other end has got plenty of it. He gets in the ring, he manhandles people, wears little shorts. It kind of looks like he's oiled up when he fights, but he's not oiled up. Also, he's kind of homegrown. He works with us at Body Type Nutrition. He comes on the retreats with me and does the cool stuff that we do in Spain. It's Simon Herbert. Hello.
Hi guys, hi Ben. Good to be on the show.
Mate, to be honest, it's been a long time coming. I should have done it sooner. You have been bugging me for a while.
I think, yeah, for about 4 years.
The show's not quite yet 4 years, so your maths is worse than mine.
Well, it's never been good.
Fact. Buddy, Simon Herbert, we need to tell people who you are, but I want to give people a good amount of context. So, you're a trainer, you're a nutritionist, you own a gym, but what brought you to that place? Give me the background, because all the best coaches have got some good stories that took them there.
Yeah, so I suppose mine really started off at school. Probably kind of the kid that really tried hard to fit in and mix with everyone, because my life was a little bit different. I had quite a little bit going off in terms of sports. Like, really wanted to get in the gym and train. And I suppose as a kid, you're always trying to like prove yourself to somebody or try and fit in with a group of people that you want to be surrounded by. And at that time, for me, the thing was to get some size on, to be a little bit bigger, because I was kind of like a little scrawny kid who used to get pushed around a little bit. So I suppose it all kind of started there. Started training, looking into getting bigger, looking towards stepping on stage as a bodybuilder. And then as life progressed and I spent a lot of focus on that, things kind of missed out, like the nutrition aspect. It was all kind of the old school 80s, 90s dilemma where you're chicken, broccoli and rice and being in the gym for 2 hours a day and you can't spend time with friends and you can't go out and drink and you can't do all that type of stuff. And then I started to mingle both things in there. So like having fun, spending time with friends and family and still eating the gym. And I kind of burnt the candle at both ends. And came down with an illness, which was inflammatory bowel disease. Spent a bit of time in and out of hospital over the next 6 to 12 months. Got told that I would potentially need an operation to have a colostomy bag on if I didn't kind of sort things out where I was at. So yeah, that kind of hit home. I didn't really know much about nutrition. All I knew was to get in the gym and train heavy and lift weights in probably a bad technique and bad form. And yeah, that's kind of where it all started off. And the understanding the nutrition to solve my own or resolve my own health issues was the main thing. And then from that, I got the satisfaction of talking to other people who was ill. And then, yeah, it all kind of came from there and started to learn and study nutrition, took the level 3 personal trainer, and then bang, 7 or 8 years later, I'm in a gym and running my own facility and helping other people.
So with the inflammatory bowel disease, that's obviously not good. And I think a lot of people don't get the right advice in that condition, and they do end up just, thinking that the only way out is to have the colostomy bag and that, that kind of stuff. And I don't know, in your experience, in my experience, I've seen, and this is horrible to say, I've seen people where I genuinely think the surgeries could have avoided. The nutrition could have been looked at, take a little bit longer to really kind of, repair and rebuild a little bit of health. What's your experience with that?
Well, I remember if we had the doctors and the specialists, I was losing blood 30, 36 times a day over a 24-hour period. So you're going to the toilet like every half an hour, every 45 minutes and losing blood from those areas. It's quite a debilitating disease where you can't go anywhere because you need to be at the toilet. When it gets to that extent, the next stage for the surgeons is to say, look, right, we're at this point now, it's probably not going to get any better. You've been on medication, you've been on suppositories, we've done X, Y, and Z. You've seen the dietitian, you've reduced your training, you've reduced your stress load. There's nothing else we can really do. It's probably time to get your family in and tell your family what's gonna happen. We can do the operation in the next couple of days. And I'm kind of at this point thinking, I don't really want to be walking around with a colostomy bag on if I can help it. There's got to be some way around that. And then you have your TVs in your hospital beds and you start researching stuff. And obviously at this point in time, my nutrition knowledge is very little. You start reading things about glutamine and zinc and how removing gluten and dairy and inflammatory foods can help with the digestive system. So I started to look into that a little bit more, and I just had a feeling that maybe there's a little bit more that I can do to help myself before we make that decision. And I can remember sat at night looking at designer colostomy bags, looking to see if they do one for diesel, because I'm thinking, if I'm walking down this beach, I want to look cool with this bag on. You know, these are all the things that you think about. It's like, if I've got to have this operation, how is it going to affect my life? How am I going to feel? You know, am I still going to be able to kickbox in the ring? Probably not, because I'm going to get this bag kicked off and it's going to end up in a crowd. All these things, it's just, these are the things you kind of think about. So I looked into the nutrition aspect, declined the operation. I thought, look, it's my choice. I can kind of go through with this now if I want to, or I can probably do a little bit more to help myself. And that's what I did. I went away and did a bit of self-healing, so to speak, cut certain foods out, went through elimination diets, meditated, stopped training for 6 months, lost a lot of weight. I think at the time I was 92 kilos and dropped down to 77. I just didn't look the same person. I was white and pasty and ill. But there were just some things, I just knew that if I could take a little bit of time to look after myself a little bit more, potentially I could have got a little bit better. And that's the start of the health journey.
So that was quite a long time ago now. What is the condition like now? Is it gone? Is it in remission? What's its status?
I had a bad year afterwards, because then I got a bout of pancreatitis with that. But since then, I've probably had 2 flares up in the last 6-7 years. So this was in 2009. And over the last 6-7 years, it's been relatively good. Life's changed massively a lot. Sleep's been better until the baby came along. Hydration's been better. Food intake's been better. And I don't burn the candle at both ends anymore. Because obviously when you're younger, you are going out while 2-3 o'clock in the morning. You are training hard. You're not getting sleep. And all these things are not taking the fact that nutrition is a massive part of being healthy and all the aspects that surround it. All those are in place now, whereas before there wasn't.
Awesome. I like the fact that you were objective and found a solution and didn't accept the status quo. And I think if there's a bit of a theme that runs through this podcast, it is to make people think and be objective, and, you know, don't accept that you have a certain condition and it's going to rule your life a certain way and you're going to have to live within certain parameters. I mean, the amount of times we see people that have been given a diagnosis and just, you know, literally tear that diagnosis up and say, well, actually, I'm going to write my own rules. And you kind of did that, so it's awesome. So new dad, you know, you've always trained quite a bit. You're into training, you're fighting, lifting weights. How's things changed? Because I mean, I'm interested because there's going to be a lot of other people interested. I'm also interested because I'm not a dad, and you know, it's not that long off before I am. So, like, what's changed? What have you had to scale back on? Can you train as much as you used to?
Not. I'm trying to train as much as what I used to, but you don't have that freedom where you can just get up and go. Obviously, there's somebody else that you've got responsibility for. So sleep's changed massively. I'm having to train my left arm a little bit more because holding him all the time means my right bicep's getting bigger. So I've got to match that up. But on a serious note, sleep's not as good as what it should be. But there's times throughout the day where I can get what's called a CRP in, controlled recovery period, or as most people call it, a power nap. But yeah, it's difficult. But you've just got to change things around a little bit. So before, where I used to train in the morning and at night, I try and train just at night now when he's gone to bed. And if you can fit a session in the day between clients and the gym's free, then I'll get that in as well.
I think part of the problem there is don't get me wrong, the reality is things need to change. I don't want to just really point out really simple shit to people, but I think the problem with that is then the resultant anxiety that people have that they can't quite be that same person. So let's say, for example, you had to chop your training down from 5 sessions to 2 a week. A lot of people might have this anxiety of like, I'm not going to be the same person. I'm not going to be able to maintain my physique. And the reality is you probably can't. You might be able to with really good sleep, training intensity. But the thing is, that's okay.
Yeah, it's got to be accepted because it's not about you anymore. You've got a family, you've got a little boy or a little girl that's growing up. They need your undivided attention, and something's got to give. You know, when you become a parent, you have more responsibilities, and part of that responsibility is being able to keep in shape and still go to the gym and look after yourself, but not being 100% obsessed with the way that you look and making sure that you're getting in the gym every day. There is times and places where you can train when the baby's asleep, or you can go out for a walk with a pram. There's so many things that you can change that you probably wouldn't normally do to increase need, to get your training in there and do a few more things.
Are you telling me you've been to bums, tums and buggies classes?
Yeah, I've peeked through windows a few times at people doing it, but I've never actually done a class on it.
I'd be interested to know if you've been doing this, because I kind of obviously think about fatherhood, and as soon as the baby comes, I'm always going to be thinking of like what I'm going to feed it, like the decisions that I'm going to take. Are you getting quite geeky into that about like the right kind of foods for it, and I suppose really sort of trying to support his development?
Yeah, I don't know if this comes from past experience with kind of like elimination diets and feeding certain foods in and looking for responses, but we're starting to wean him he's got 6 teeth now, and we're starting to wean him onto solid food. So we started off pureeing foods and starting off with just like one ingredient foods like mango, and then maybe adding peas and parsnips together, and just looking for reactions and making sure that obviously he's doing well off that. He's sleeping all right, he's got plenty of energy, he's not uptight about anything. And other than teething, which is obviously a massive like sidewinder for a baby, his digestive system looks all right, he's eating well, he's looking well, his skin's good, he's full of energy. And what we do is we just keep writing these foods down that we introduce and just monitor him as we go through. And if we do introduce a food that may trigger him or he's not too good on, then we'll just remove it and hopefully look how far we go with that. We're not getting too detailed and geeky in that, but obviously being a nutritionist now, you look at what type of foods he's eating, how does he respond, how does he feel, what's his stools like. I mean, not everybody needs to go to that extent, but it's just something that's ingrained in.
Sure. All right, we'll leave the fatherhood stuff behind. I know it might pique some interest in some people. What I want to get into today, meat and bones, is kind of around sort of fighting. That is sort of your thing outside of the gym. When did you first get into it? Because in your story earlier, you kind of primarily focused on training around bodybuilding and didn't really mention fighting.
Yeah. So fighting came in a bit later on in life. Roughly around the time I was ill was 2007, 2008, 2009. I was kind of getting into the fight training mode. Always done martial arts as a kid, such as jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, but started to get a little bit more heavy into it around about that time. I remember losing all the weight and having the first fight and thinking I still need to lose a little bit more weight. And that's what kind of got me into that mode of it, like the weight making, how you feel. You know, it's one of those sports that takes a lot of dedication, but once you're into it, you kind of become ingrained in it, and it's definitely a sport that I love. It's for me, it's always been a sport that I wanted to get into long term, but never really had the time and the energy to kind of push it 100%. And I'm still kind of at that stage at the minute, especially with the baby that's coming on board. And we've just made a few changes to where things are at the moment to fight again, because I haven't fought for like two and a half years now. So we're just getting back into that process again.
So I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and obviously Joe Rogan has a bit of a theme around fighting and comedy and stuff, and they were talking a lot about this inherent need in men, or this kind of desire to literally just like fight, go to war, protect, and that it's kind of inbuilt in us. So people that fight, is it a controlled way to go to war?
Yes and no. There's definitely a sporting aspect of it, but it's kind of like the alpha male thing. It's you sit in front of somebody else. There's nobody to help you. But the hardest thing for me is actually getting in the ring. Once you're in the ring, your training takes over. But it's the point from getting from the changing rooms to actually stepping foot in the ring and thinking, shit, I'm going to battle here. I'm going to fight with this person, and I don't know what's going to happen. And that's the hardest bit. The training up to it is difficult and it's hard, and there's that saying that you train hard and fight easy. It's never easy fighting, But once you're in there, instinct takes over. You've got a bit of adrenaline in there, and yeah, your skill takes over. But I think the hardest thing for me is getting in there. And it's really good to think, right, I've got a fight lined up, I'm going to be fighting this kid, and there's all this build up around it. And then you actually get to that day, and you kind of still feel all right. You might have a bit of a dicky night's sleep the night before, and then you've got 10, 15 minutes warming up in the background, and you're just about to go into that ring. Everything in the back of the head tells you, I don't want to do this. You know, hopefully something will just crop up where I don't have to do it. And then there's another part of you that says, no, don't be like that. You're in there, you're doing it. And it's a battle with yourself. So there's definitely an alpha male side of it, but there's also a challenging side of it. And there's also a fun side to the sport as well.
So I'm intrigued about your training. I'm always intrigued to inquire on how people balance kind of like a multidisciplinary approach to training. So you've obviously got a spar. You've got to keep conditioning yourself for like speed, power. There's probably a desire on your side to maintain your muscle mass and physique. So what does a week's training look like?
So on Monday morning will just be a full body workout, basic hypertrophy. Monday night would be a pad session. So whatever that pad layout could be some boxing skills, it could be some leg drills, it could be combinations. And then Tuesday morning, I go to Sheffield Hallam University and I go to the sports lab there with boxing science. And in there, we do strength and conditioning circuit. So we do some S&C work that's specific for my fight sport and any areas that I'm lacking. It could be force production, it could be speed, it could be power. And then we're going to what's called a woodway curve. So the woodway curve is, you'll probably know, but for the viewers, a woodway curve is a treadmill with no motor on it. And you have to sprint up to a certain get up to full whack, full speed, and then maintain it for whatever that desired time is on that day. So that's part of the conditioning side of it. Tuesday night, probably go back training again on pads. Wednesday morning off. Wednesday night is clinch and boxing. So clinch in Thai and kickboxing is where you get in close and grapple while you're on your feet and turning your opponent and firing the knees into the body and the legs. And then Thursday morning, back at Sheffield Hallam University. Thursday night off, Friday night sparring, where you come home with loads of black eyes and bloody nose. Saturday morning back on pads, Sunday rest day.
That's quite a lot of training.
It is a lot of training. And this is the thing. The training now, the times that I train now are different to what I was training last year because the baby's here. So Tuesday in the mornings, like 7 while 8:30, and I used to do that mid-morning last year. But now I get up there in the morning, get it out of the way, and then at night time train while he's in bed. So yeah, it's a lot of training, but it's got to be, you know.
Yeah, no, and I suppose it's just once you've got the desire, you apply the right tools. Like you've got a gym, you've got lots of clients, you've got a baby, you've got a training schedule, but you've got a desire to do it, and you make it work. Like
it makes it a lot easier having staff and people around you to help. I don't know how I manage if we're just running the facility on my own, but yeah, you make sacrifices and you put things in place, and I've got a plan. I know where I am each week and what I'm doing and what I'm eating and what I'm drinking, and I'm off. The hardest part is just fulfilling it and getting it done.
So with you're now building up to go to a fight. Did you say it was in November, your next fight?
4th of November, yeah, I'm fighting Thai rules.
So with that, what has changed with your nutrition? Is it simply a case that you're supporting sort of the calorie expenditure that you're now going through, which I'm assuming is quite high? You must be eating a lot.
We dropped it down to about 2,800 to make weight because I was due to fight this Saturday just gone, but the whole show fell through. So we booked on for the 12th of November. So the calories are starting to increase again, but the training load slightly come down because I'm having a bit of a deload week. So yeah, looking at calories, compensating for calories and training output, and then looking at just making sure there's plenty of variety in the diet, getting all the nutrients that I need, making sure that I'm hydrated, because when you're training twice a day, one of those factors is you could be losing a kilo and a half in weight each training session. So I've got to make sure that I'm getting all that water on board, I'm hydrated, and making sure that I'm getting my supplements in, so vitamins, minerals, creatine, beta-alanine, all the performance aspects in there. And essentially just looking at everything as a whole. The hardest thing really is to make sure that I'm fueled properly for training and I'm not spending all day eating. So the timing around training and workouts, the nutrient timing takes quite a big focus at this moment, as well as the calorie intake.
I think it has to. Like, I'm also a big fan of eating quite close to training. I'd rather not risk being underfueled in a training session. I definitely find this because because of my schedule, I have to do an hour's weight training session and then 90 minutes of conditioning work at rugby because I'm not prepared to train twice a day with my schedule. So if I don't eat quite close to that training, I'll get halfway through kind of conditioning rugby and I'll just be like, yeah, I just need to eat. You know, so I'm a big fan of that. And people quite often ask me, when's the best time to eat? And I'm like, you just got to play around with it. You just got to play, see what works for you.
Definitely, because if I'm training in the morning, early in the morning, if I have to be at the sports lab for 7 o'clock, I might have a client before that. So I might have a 5:45 a.m. client till 6:30 and then shoot off to the sports lab, train and then come back. So getting up and getting some food at 5 o'clock in the morning is just not appealing at all. So it has to be a liquid drink for me before I get to training. And then post-workout, I'll end up having a whole food meal. So that'll be something to eat like breakfast, maybe some scrambled eggs, bit of bacon, some spinach on some toast. And then eat accordingly through the day. And if I'm training again that night, the focus for the morning is going to be making sure that I can replace glycogen and get fueled again for that evening session, where I've got enough in the tank to then be able to train again at a good level at night. So it's looking at that. It's looking at that training, where you're going to get your nutrients on board and where you're going to get them in and in which form.
So with the fight that you've just been prepping for, how much weight have you had to lose or tried to lose?
Well, the fight was 81. We got down to 82 and a half. So I'm hovering at about 82 and a half at the moment. Okay,
got you. And where do you like to be, just for everyday living?
Yeah, I feel good at about 81. But the problem is, because I'm only 5'10" and a half, 5'11", it's hard to fight. It's hard to fight people at my size. They're always a lot taller and a lot thinner, which obviously is it's a lot harder to get closer to them. So potentially I could do with fighting at 76, 78, but 76 is a low weight for me to get to. I mean, losing muscle mass, it's not a weight that I'm used to being at. So I think we're going to focus on, the next fight is 78 kilos. So I'm currently 82. We've got 9-10 weeks, so I'll probably get down to 81 and a half, and then cut that on a low residue diet for the last few days.
Okay, so even knowing that you've got a massive timeline, you would choose to get down to like 2 kilos above your fight weight and cut water into the weight and rehydrate. That would always be your strategy, rather than coming in almost at fight weight.
Yeah, because if you coming in at fight weight, if you felt good at fight weight, that's fine. But I feel better about 81 kilos. So I want to make sure that I'm performing well at 81 kilos. And then if I have to slightly dehydrate, and we're only talking slight, because we know that 2% dehydration is going to affect cognitive function. So we don't want to be dehydrated when we get in the fight. We've got plenty of time to refuel. But that being said, weight needs to be roughly about 81 kilos so that I'm not coming down too far. I can still perform. I'm not tired in training. And then the last week, we just shove that a little bit further and just drop that last little bit of weight.
So I'm intrigued, because in fight sports, there's generally a lot of kind of really old school approaches, like just a lot of dogma floating around, what my granddad did in the 60s, like you should do. What common mistakes do you see fighters or people that are looking to cut weight do?
I see them dehydrating, sauna suits, getting in a sauna first thing in the morning, skipping at the side of this weighing scales when they're due to weigh in. I mean, it can be dangerous for a start. If you've got a same day weigh-in and they're having to get 3 kilos off on that same day because they've left things too short and not planned it, that's going to be dangerous. They haven't really got enough time to rehydrate. And 9 times out of 10, because fighters, there's not enough money in the sport at our level, unless you're professional level like McGregor or somebody else. You're not getting paid millions of pounds. You might be getting a few £100 to fight, or you might not be getting anything. It depends what you're in the sport for. So you don't really have enough money to pay a nutritionist, and it's not something that they look into and understand much themselves. So a lot of people just go on hearsay, what Joe does in the gym, what Dave does in the gym, and everybody else, and you hear some horrific stories. But you still see people training in bin liners, sauna suits, trying to get that weight down 5 weeks before a fight. And I question it and I say, look, why are you training? Why are you skipping in a black bin liner? And they're like, well, I need to get my weight down. I'm like, you do understand that all you're losing when you train with the bin liner on is sweat. You're just going to sweat more. You're not actually burning more body fat. They're like, really? It's like, yeah, all you're losing is water weight. You go and step on them scales now and then step on them tomorrow morning, you're probably still going to be dehydrated because you've lost so much water. But if you look at your diet and plan things accordingly over a set amount of weeks and months, then you're going to start and perform well. Then you're going to make weight and you've got a little bit more time to do it. And then you don't have to do all these crash methods that can be dangerous, because if you're dehydrated and you're getting in a ring and you're getting hit, it's scary.
I think part of the problem is that when we look at some sports and disciplines, the focus is always on the discipline. Like the fighting is about the fighting. It's about the skills, about the moves, and people don't always kind of connect the dots between nutrition and how that is actually fueling everything. And I think more than anything, it's just a bit sad that people don't really kind of look to appreciate the nutrition's role in this, because it can just make or break literally everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 30 grams of carbs before training can be a massive difference between performing well, training well, and underperforming. If you're underperforming and you can't finish your rounds, or you're in sparring and you're getting caught and hit, that's a demotivator, not only in yourself, but also in your conditioning. So, like, why not make sure that you're fueling and performing right, train harder and train better, and become a better fighter? I don't know, it's like putting water in a car and then trying to drive it.
So what you're saying is when Grandad would turn up to his gym session with a banana and he'd be munching a banana as he's getting training, he is doing the right thing.
He probably is doing the right thing, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Providing he can train on a banana.
What else in terms of managing your recovery do you find is really key? I mean, we've talked about diet. We've talked about overall intake. We've talked about kind of ergogenic supplements, vitamins, minerals, sleep. Is there anything else that you as an athlete make sure that is there for your recovery and performance?
100% hydration, something that we haven't really discussed. If you're not hydrated sufficiently, you're going to underperform, you're going to feel tired, you're not going to be able to get what you need out of it. And recovery from hydration through training is a big key factor.
So just plain water, what's your strategy?
Yeah, I just drink plain water anyway. Not a lot of people can drink plain water, but these electrolytes you can get on board. It just depends. If you're training for a prolonged period of time and you're sweating a lot, then the longer you train, the more you sweat, the more you need something other than just water. You're gonna have to get salts in there and electrolytes, sodium, potassium. Because obviously the more water you drink when you're dehydrated, it doesn't always get driven into cells. So if you want a quicker hydration, electrolytes. But it depends on the amount of time you're training, the amount you're sweating, and the environment, the humidity that you're training in. I mean, like I said, I can lose anywhere between 1 kilo to 1.5 kilos in weight. I'm not going to get all that rehydrated at the end of the night before I've got training the next morning. So I'll probably have to take on board some electrolytes.
What about the role of sort of overall mobility and flexibility? Because you're someone with a lot of knowledge that I've experienced firsthand in movement and mobility. Do you have a bit of a routine yourself? Do you find that if you're training properly, you don't need too much movement and mobility work? How does it fit in?
I think you should always keep on top of your mobility and your flexibility. I think that should be something that's planned into your pre-movement patterns before you train. And I think that it should be worked out sufficiently. Like looking at different movement patterns to not necessarily get things firing and switched on, but more so getting movement patterns in place to what you are going to be doing. So it's no good like doing an overhead snatch if you're going to be doing 1,000 kicks on a bag. Might work well to get your hips warmed up and look at thoracic rotation because you're going to be rotating through your body. So like a good overall mobility and pre-movement pattern is going to be beneficial. And then stretching, again, is something else that a lot of people don't really do. But when you're looking at joint health, range of motion, the tighter you are getting, the more restricted you are, the more chance you've got of injury. So it's always common sense to get a good mobility pattern in place, pre-movement, a good warm-up, get a heart pulse rate in there, get your heart rate up, and then essentially just build into your training before you hit it hard. Because I do see people come into the gym sometime, and I've been culprit to this. You know, you turn up to training late, and then you're straight on pads, and then you're smashing pads, you're hitting pads, and then you wonder why your wrist's not right, or you've got a little tear in your bicep, or your lower back's aching because your piriformis is too tight, or your glutes are tight and you can't kick properly, and, you know, all these things that people don't think about. And then at the end of the session, they're straight off on them for the tea, and they've not stretched, and, you know, time doesn't always allow. You don't always have to do it around training times, but it's beneficial to warm up, and it's definitely beneficial to get a stretching routine somewhere else, either in the day or around your workouts.
Well, Simon, good luck with the fight.
Yes, thank you.
Simon, obviously it would be good for people to be able to find you after today's show on the old social machine. Where are you on Instagram, Facebook, those kind of places, so people can come and check out and follow your work?
Cool. So Instagram handles Simon Herbert UK. Facebook is Simon Herbert Fitness and Nutrition Coach.
Hang on. Well, say that again. Facebook is Simon Herbert Fitness and Nutrition Coach.
Simon Herbert Fitness and Nutrition on Facebook.
Okay.
And then Instagram at Simon Herbert UK. It's a Sheffield twang, yeah? It's a Sheffield twang.
You haven't got an accent, no.
Nah.
Well, for anyone that's listening that has taken some interest in the conversation today, give Simon a follow on give Simon a follow on social media. He puts out some great content, some thought-provoking content, especially on Instagram, so do give him a follow. Simon is also actually a lecturer on the BTN Academy, talks on some very specific topics on our online nutrition course. Simon, thanks again for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
For everyone that's listening, if you've enjoyed this or you think someone could be interested in the show, tag them in it, share the love, and get the information out there. We've mentioned Body Type Nutrition. If you want to get more information on health and fitness, go over and have a look at the blog. Read some blogs over there. There's lots of really cool information, and supplements have come up today. If you want some clarity, examine.com is a great resource to find out if supplements work or whether they don't. Awesomesupplements.co.uk has a lot of information. It actually has a fight sports PDF that will help you with diet, training and nutrition and give you some tips. And also there's a lot of just information kicking around on just clarity in supplements and whether you need them and whether you don't. Right, that's it from me. I will see you all next week. Thanks again from Simon. And in the meantime, all of you, stay awesome. Goodbye. Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio. Now, I'm pretty pumped, I'm going to be honest, for today's